He mihi nunui, he mihi no mātou ki te whiwhi. No mātou ki te whiwhi ki a whakapātu ki ene. O ngai taha, ngā tama pāpā, ko haumia, ko tangaroa, ko tūkorongo, ko tāne mahuta. Nāna e te tōko, te rangi ki runga nei, ka heua te pō, ka tata te pō ki raro nei. O tira hako te hapa, tēnā koutou, tēnā tata katoa kairaro. Okay, we can move on now. Just have to do that. You usually find that if we move amongst old objects, we've got to pay tribute to the old objects. Sometimes you'll find that because they've been imbued or been on people, they carry the essence of those people on them. And I'm not sure how you might view them. I mean, people touch them and view them as objects. We touch and view them as living beings. So it's important for us to greet those who've been on them, and greet everybody here and what we bring into the room. My name's Carl Te Rangi Kawhiti Leonard. I come from a background of both carvers and weavers. I come from Central North Island, Rotorua. When the arts were dying out in all other parts of the country, it was our area that actually maintained both the arts of carving, weaving, performing arts, oratory. We maintained most of the arts there. Luckily, because of tourism at the time, it actually helped ensure the survival of our art forms, where they actually passed away in many parts of our country. Now, as Māori, and probably most Indigenous, for whatever we do, even though the cloaks might spiritually belong to us and in our mind belong to us, the land doesn't. For us, there's a genealogy to everything, and when you go into another land, it's very important to have the people of that particular place present, because they embody everything.
Mea Huen, Cindy Alvitre, Gabrielina Tonga, and from the island of Pimo, Catalina Island, and different villages throughout this region, and I'm very honored, kia ora, to be amongst relatives.
Like you, I saw your face when you stepped in, was like, oh, hang on, I'll just step back, because I'm just stepping into a cemetery here. Yeah. And I just need to put on the right shoes first. And that's exactly why I stepped in the river yesterday, looked back and went, okay, I'll just back up here a bit and just get myself ready. Because, it's you're visiting your old people. Regardless of how people may view these as objects, they're not just objects. They've been on people's skin. People's oils are all imbued in these pieces. Just seeing them out in the open air it means a lot, I think, to us as Māori.
Kia ora tātou, greetings all. Welcome to you, Cindy, and thank you for welcoming us at the same time. My first visit to UCLA was in connection to these taonga. I was in the city and I'd heard about them and I wanted to pay respect and also, I admit, to soak up a bit of that aroha from home. I think that they were calling, and I had my job interview in this very building, and so sort of knowing that behind that wall and behind that wall and behind that wall these guys were sitting, it's the same feeling as knowing that your mum and dad are out sort of side, waiting for you and cheering you on and supporting you.
I think, like many old pieces throughout the world, they cry out for their descendants just to come and visit them. Yes. Just to really sometimes to settle them.
Kia ora everybody, good morning. First of all to the tangata whenua, tēnā koe, tēnā koutou, thank you so much for housing our beautiful things and hosting this conversation. And to the kaikarakia, the people who made it right for us to be here today, thank you for lifting the space so that we can be together in this human physical world. So my name is Michelle Irai, my tribe's in Ngāpuhi, Ngāti Porou, and I've been asked to also acknowledge Ngāti Whātua. And I, like many of the things I think we're going to be looking at, have a bit of a round trip journey. I'm a member of the Cabinet of Curiosities that colonisation prepared and has set up. And I think, stepping up to that process, and accepting the small part of responsibility that, you know, I as a body inhabit by proximity. How we, through colonisation, ended up in these trajectories from Aotearoa to an auction site in London, to a crate of a rich white American, to the shores over here, and then in the basement of this building, is to me a really interesting story. It's a sad story, but it's also a story of connection. So what do we do with that now?
There's absolute connections. You know, nobody sees the ocean as our land.
Right.
You know,
Our connective tissue.
yeah, it's our land. That's it. People describe landscape deserts and the earth, but islands, they don't make the connect that the ocean, you know, the Momat is the land. That is our sacredness. Our islands, that is the piko. That is the belly button of our communities and of all Southern California Indian tribes. That's it. The ocean. And yes, that's the other connection aside from the geographical landscape, you know, is where our ancestors have traveled. You know, and we're following them in those travels. The same paths
I
everywhere.
feel a bit
they
like
t-
Hansel and Gretel, like the little Maori Hansel and Gretel. It's like following along behind the breadcrumbs and saying, where did you leave parts of us, and how are we going to deal with it now?
Yes, it's much more when you're asked to be present, to be genuinely present before ancestors.
I'm having my Christmas right now because to be amongst, you know, the quality garments, and, you know, just amongst the feeling of the pieces and the people who wore them. You know, they invoke, they provoke, they stir conversation. This is probably, it's these type of garments that give lead to a lot of the garments that we create today, where a lot of the cloak types are actually mixed together. So the first cloak type you have is the kaitaka style, which has the woven tāniko border. They've continued it on through all their warp threads all the way through. It's fine. There's very small spacing in between. But you've got, this is like in the transition stage between kaitaka, where it had just the border, the introduction of a little bit of wool. Then we're moving into another class of garment, which is the korowai. And the korowai is more dominant during the 1880s. And that's when you get all these tassels on the outside, and then you're starting to go into the piu-piu, you know, which is really a takeoff of rain capes, where they have these little tubular shapes on the outside, and they've put that in intermittently. So this really is a morph. It's got everything in it, you know.
But you know, there's so much work in this one. Because we've got all of these thrums here that have been plied separately over the thigh. They vary in fineness. Some of them are very fine, some of them are a bit coarser. There's a lot of work here,
This is more of a skill. This is more of an art. Everybody had to learn how to weave, both men and women. So, you know, you had the basics of weaving. If it was just your rough clothing, everybody could do it. It's like everybody could pray, but when it came to special incantations, special prayers, that's when they got assigned to special people. And it's the same with this. They were those specialists. Everybody could do things generally, but
You know, today it's the women that actually go for a number of different components in their attire, and the men have very sort of structured looks. But in those days, it was completely different. Different. I think it was the men that we adorned them until they spoke volumes about who they were, and if I might say about who we are as well. I think if I was a weaver, just say for instance, if I was a weaver and I was chosen to weave a cloak for our chief, I would make sure I'd be delivering my best.
You'd pull out all the stops.
I'd pull out all the stops, exactly.
This is probably one of the best feathered kaku that I've ever seen. It's the symmetry of everything. They've got their triangles are done so well planned out that others that I've seen haven't set as well as this. So it's not only their triangular designs are really spot on, so that says that they're a top weaver. The other thing that can tell you how great they are is that when you actually turn it slightly to the underside, you don't see too many feathers coming through. There's very little, there's maybe a little bit of down here and there, but that's the other sign of a great weaver. But how they've made them sit together, perfect. Feathered cloaks really didn't come into being until about 1860s, 70s is when they started coming into vogue. And it was in that period where they were transitioning between huka cloaks, or the korowai, which have these tassels. So this is one of those transitional periods where they were moving from one cloak into the other. And so it wasn't unusual to find, for want of a better word, a fusion of the two.
Were repairs done, or would they just then go on to making another piece?
They'd make another one.
Yeah.
They would make another one. In traditional times, this plant, harakeke, or Formium tenax, was, we were completely surrounded by it. We used it in netting, we used it in baskets, in our floor mats, etc., etc. So it's an integral part of our culture. So it was nothing to just, if one was gone, to go outside and make another one. And no distractions in those times, I'm sure. That they could sit down and actually make a cloak in a relatively short time.
How long do you think a piece like this might have taken?
Oh, this one is hard work. A minimum of 2 years' work, just by the sizing of the warp and weft threads. And that's besides spinning all the huka, the thrum threads on the outside. See, this has taken me about 3 to 4 months just to do this alone. The one section of that would be easily an equivalent. And I mean, that's a finer 3 count than this again. I mean, this is pretty fine, but that's double fine. So it's once again it comes back to time. How much time you've got to spend on it in preparation. So whoever wove this is obviously, a high-ranking person, a master weaver at their art, knows about colour combination, pattern placement, and design.
I love the cloaks because they are an excellent example of craftsmanship. And often I would hear my mother and my grandmother say, "Oh, our people were clever. They were so smart." There are a number of cloaks that speak volumes about who we were. It's just such a shame that we don't know who we were. But they can tell us who we are. And there's a lot of thinking that's gone on, like these Tānakō bands. There's a lot of maths that's gone on in their head to execute that. To weave it, you've got to have the patience, you've got to have the endurance, you've got to have all of those things going on. And so we used to have that, and then it went. And today, our people need to look at these and know that we're connected to this intellectual property. We had the intellect to do that. We need to go back there. We need to know that we can do something that's a huge task and complete it. And we had the dexterity. So